So I'm going to bring to you an exercise that is related to the assessment of uncertainty in forest cover change maps. And the aim of this exercise is to stimulate reflection, discussion about how this might be useful for in the chain, the flow chart of the error propagation in carbon estimates over time. This exercise was done in collaboration between the Laboratorio for Geoespacial Analysis in the Geography Institute UNAM and the Research Center in Geography and Geomatics, which is called Centro Geo, both institutions in Mexico City.
You want me to advance for you?
Well, if you wish. Oh, okay. Thank you. This exercise has been done in the general framework of a general idea of trying to contribute to the accuracy assessment of forest cover change maps. So I will present first some features of the general framework that we're trying to propose in the last 2 years. We've been working in the context of trying to reach some proposals for regulations in the RED plus MRV scheme. Secondly, I will present the actual exercise in the study area of eastern Chiapas in Mexico. And we hopefully will discuss about the perspectives of this exercise and other exercises that I'm sure other people will present in this session. Okay. Okay. So a classical debate. One of the features here is about a classical debate is about scale of deforestation that we are, or forest cover change that we are detecting, that we are measuring using remote sensing. On the left-hand side, we have the type of deforestation that FAO would like to report, no, according to the definition of forest of FAO. And on the right-hand side, we have the type of this deforestation, for example, detected by coarse scale sensors that are actually used for national statistics in many subtropical countries. Still now, although in Mexico there is a change that's trying to have a change of scales with this new project of MadMex. So this was the motivation to propose a simple categorization of sensors in the context of trying to build technical prerequisites or technical prerequisite for regulating RED plus MRV scheme in Mexico in some pilot project that I was involved in. So it consists basically in dividing or in separating sensors between among low resolution, medium resolution, and high resolution sensors and talk in terms of these categories, capability 1, 2, and 3, in order to propose some consistent forest cover change definitions, which is the topic of the next slide. So based on these categories, we would have first, well, we considered a definition that is forest to non-forest change in a 0.5 hectare surface or more, which we called FAO definition, FAO deforestation. Additionally, we considered a forest, non-forest change in a convex 6 hectares area or more that would look like more as the deforestation detected with coarse-scale sensors, and we named it extensive deforestation. And this is because coarse-scale sensors still are somehow attractive, at least for the last 10 years or so, to try and measure deforestation in the last 10 years. So, for example, capability 2 and 3 sensors would be able to detect such deforested landscape, whereas capability 1 sensors would detect only landscapes such as the one on the right-hand side. Based on these considerations, then the framework for deforestation accuracy assessment, which might apply to national level, would include features such as these prerequisites of capability 2 sensors that would need to be used, a coverage of capability 2 sensors in order to verify, to calculate the accuracy of extensive deforestation maps, which we have plenty in Mexico, because this has been up to date practically. The use of maps of 1 to 250,000 scale maps, deforestation maps derived from these data sets, and capability 3 sensors that would be used to verify actual FAO deforestation processes, no? As we defined it, which would be very useful in the case of the MADMEX project since 1993. I think there are maps already available since these dates, and we could generate a scheme, a framework in order to assess the accuracy of the change maps. And another feature, which is in the sampling design, which might include a 2-stage sampling using as frames for example, the Landsat tiles, in order to assess the accuracy of extensive deforestation derived from the different series of INEGI, for example, and on the other hand, in order to assess the accuracy of FAO deforestation using panchromatic spot images at least for in the past few years. Second stage selections, selections of spatial units in the second stage of the sampling design. And in the case of FAO deforestation, that these spatial units would be 0.5 hectares. So now, we tried to make a pilot study in order to make some first steps of this general framework, and we selected a study area which is Marques de Comilla, near to the Guatemala border. There's a strong presence of institutions there to promote the environmental services, because it's a region where in the past intense government-driven colonization of the forested area happened, bringing indigenous peasants from other Mexican states. So there's a dynamic agricultural frontier in these municipio and the municipios nearby, with high deforestation rates in the present. This exploratory exercise focused on the second stage of the sampling design, looking at a simple accuracy assessment with one panchromatic spot imagery per date. Okay, I think this is useless because we cannot see the classification, the two classes, the non-forest and forest, but it was illustrative of how between 1990 and 2010 the deforestation is happening with a high rate. Anyways, the materials for forest, non-forest map production was Landsat images from the 1990, 2000, and more recently multispectral spot images. The classification method was done using multivariate regression with spectral and spatial variables from the imagery in order to derive percentage tree cover, a little bit like I think the old approach that you mentioned, and then convert this continuous map into a forest non-forest map standardized at 90 per 90 meter resolution, and using the FAO definition in order to classify forest versus non-forest, which is which is a tree coverage above 30%. One of the doublets of maps that we started to assess was 2010 and 2012, using deriving the 4 change classes and selecting simply selecting a stratified. Doing a stratified sampling design and with 100 points per class, and the validation was based on visual interpretation of spot imagery, which is illustrated here in the case of this is a case of two agreements on the map of these 90 per 90 meter plots. There's the map. The case of an error on the map in this part, which was in the reality forest and appeared as a deforestation pixel. And this is how the distribution of errors and agreements looked like in some part of the area near to the Montes Azules Biosphere Reserve on the left-hand side. And we pretty much qualitatively observed that many errors tended to correspond to the fringes of the agricultural frontier, which makes sense in the sense that there might occur some confusions indeed in terms of discriminating between non-forest and forest, especially in vegetation regrowth areas. And another example, so they tend to aggregate in the vicinity of the agricultural frontier, which yielded this error matrix as the result of this simple accuracy assessment exercise, and what trying to reason as using this type of simple exercise as a means of estimating errors in the carbon evolution, well, the evolution of the carbon stocks. Then we try to look at the normalized matrix in the sense of Stephane, I think from SUNY University, distinguished environmental statistician, in which every cell contains a fraction of the total area, which eases the interpretation of the matrix in some ways. For example, if we look at the totals column of the area fraction, we could interpret that the deforestation actually mapped rises to 8.712% of the total area under study, whereas the area fraction on the other column representing the projection of the verification material as if it was projected to the entire area, indicates us that deforestation area would be up to 9.736. Now, the difference between these two figures might indicate us a bias of the map to underrepresent deforestation. However, one of the questions I would address, because I think we should be very careful in interpreting this bias, this difference, which we can relate to a surface, a surface in this case of about 900 hectares, but saying that the map, well, the combination of the two maps, the forest change map has a bias of 900 hectares, I believe should not, should be mitigated by the fact that this is actually only one guess of the accuracy of the calculation of the accuracy assessment. So there, I would be glad if somebody, if in the discussion there could be some opinions about this, and if this bias we could assign this bias some kind of confidence interval, and this is where I'm stuck in this exercise. I wonder if we need to repeat the exercise, putting more samples in order to, other samples, independent samples, in order to get a distribution of this bias and try to get a figure that indicates an error in terms of surface and content of carbon. Another figure that we could look at is the confidence half interval of these accuracy indices. For example, 59% would be the accuracy index of the deforestation class, and this would be more or less 4.92%. Now, I wonder if this can translate in a confidence interval in terms of surface. If this figure, where the variable that I'm studying, that I'm assessing in terms of accuracy, is the deforestation class, if this can translate in surface and half interval of surface, which we are interested in terms of carbon content. So this is the other question that I have for the audience. And other than that, I were just trying to interpret the relatively low score for deforestation class in terms of different hypotheses. Another study that we made in a nearby municipio yielded higher accuracy index when we assessed the forest cover change between 2000 and 2008 in the Maravilla de Tenejapa municipio. There might be a problem of the choosing satellite image a couple of satellite images in which both dates are sufficiently close to the dates of the satellite imagery that have been used to generate the forest maps. This is some of the issues we are looking at. Okay, and I believe this is about it. So we are proposing this type of exercise in order to infer some possible bias or some possible errors in terms of surface, but we should again be careful about concluding on surfaces starting with a variable that is class that we intend to assess a class. Then, in terms of relevance for MRV, we should. This is another approach that different than looking at each date separately and then trying to estimate carbon change and within error margins, and would allow to base ourselves on a baseline map for one date, and then try to calculate the error propagation in time. And another consideration of this is there is the need for complementing the sampling design with the first stage of the sampling design, using these panchromatic spot frames. And finally, is a forest cover change map a preliminary step potentially to sample carbon loss in the areas where there has been deforestation or has been reforestation. This is the other perspective of this work. This is it.
Secretaría de Medio Ambiente y Recursos Naturales.